Test, test, test. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
Leon, can you hear me? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? All right, perfect. Good deal. We'll be starting here shortly, guys.
Hey, this is Bruce. I can hear y'all.
Very good, sir. Ready to push the button. All right. All righty. It's about 7 minutes after 11. Everybody ready? This is a Commissioners Court workshop, so being a public meeting, it has a notice. So we do have Commissioner Arthur here with us today, Commissioner Korbowski, and Commissioner Wilson. There you are. All right. He got the memo today to wear blue. Okay, that's good. All right. Sheriff Reuter's on there also, and County Attorney Poston is also on Zoom. The rest of us are here in the building, and this is a presentation on wind energy potential applications in Liberty County with PACE. And it's interesting. It's not your typical, what I call a cow fan, like they have out in West Texas or in California, in say below Ontario or above Ontario, the area that goes into Palm Springs. It's pretty interesting. This is a whole different concept. Welcome, gentlemen and ladies. Let's see if we can go ahead and get started. So who's up first? Come on, yeah, come introduce yourself and we'll get busy.
First of all, thank you, Judge, for having us in today, commissioners and sheriff. We got an opportunity to work with a local resident out in Cleveland, and who's a good friend and business partner, Ron Smith, who owns a property called Juma Ranch. We saw that fit to do some manufacturing of this new wind technology that you're going to see a little bit later in the meeting. And one of the advantages we have in installing this technology with business owners and with rural ranchers is the PACE funding program. So we're going to go a little bit in reverse order because this was really meant to be a program to introduce the PACE funding program, which was property assessed clean energy. Charlene Haydinger is going to take the stage and she'll give you guys the full rundown on her PACE in the Box program. And then we'll give you a little bit more background on the technology and why we want to marry these two in Liberty County to step forward with this product in Texas. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Charlene Heidinger. I'm the president of the Texas PACE Authority. It's a nonprofit, a 501c3. It was created in 2015 to serve counties and cities who are considering who choose to establish your own PACE program. The statute was passed in 2013. What the legislature did in Texas was say, counties and cities, if you want to create this program, you can. And it lays out some parameters on how you can do it. When we finished getting that statute passed with a huge coalition of supporters, there really wasn't any opposition to it because it's completely voluntary. It's very free market, has a small government footprint. We had, and what ended up being 130 volunteers spread into 5 different working groups. And I told everybody, this will take 6 months. We just got to go get best practices from a couple other states. Well, the other early adapter states were California and Florida. And we found lessons learned. And so what we did was we took the best of what we could find and we brought it back. It took an entire year to create a model program we call PACE in a Box, but we really Texified it by making it a strong protective program with a very small government footprint, and a lot of flexibility in the marketplace. But having said that, we are very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. So originally, this was to be done in-house by local governments, and it became very clear very quickly that that really wasn't possible. And so PACE in a Box was actually written for the councils of governments, the COGs. There are 24 in Texas. And they basically said, unless you give us the funding up front, we can't do it. So finally, this nonprofit was created to do it as a public service. No taxpayer dollars are involved, and no staff is required, because we knew if we didn't make this local government friendly, it would never get off the ground. But the idea behind this model is that it's uniform. So there are 55 local governments in Texas now doing this in the same way with the same documents, so that once your contractors learn this program, your lenders learn this program, they only have to learn one program. And they may have properties in counties all over the state, but they only have to learn it once. And we like the idea of having one Texas program instead of 254. It just scales, and our commitment, we get paid a user fee when the project's closed by the owners. And the idea is the more volume we can get, the faster we can grow this, and the more projects we can get, we'll keep lowering our prices, because more use, we want a high volume, low cost program. So happy to be here. I tell most people it takes hearing this 3 times to really understand it. So bear with me, you're gonna have lots of questions. Until your questions are answered, you're not going to want to do this. So keep asking. It's a great program, a very, very, very low risk to the county. And you're going to hear about a potential PACE project after we're done. But I want to assure you that the Texas PACE Authority has no interest in being a one project wonder in Liberty County. If you create this, we will try and train your contractors, your architects, your roofers, your lighting folks, everybody, so that they can do more business, because private sector property owners are going to finally have a way to afford to keep up their properties. So that's going to be more work for everybody. But if we can help a church, if we can help a small business, if we can help a factory, if we can help a farm, we want to do that. We want to bring value to multiple folks here in Liberty County. So what's the problem? The problem is that when somebody needs a new HVAC system in their business, or they need a new roof, or their electric bills are too high and they want to replace their lighting, these projects are, number 1, expensive, and number 2, they have a long payback period, a long ROI. It takes forever. They will eventually break even, but people are not about to pull money out of their core business to pay for these projects, because they're going to have to lay somebody off, or it just... People want a return on their investment faster than 15 years. They want it in 2. So the problem has always been, how are we going to pay for it? Okay, let's try something else here. Okay, there we go. All right, so here we go. There are 2 ways to make money. You either sell more stuff or services, or you cut your expenses. Everybody would like to cut their utility bills. And when they do, they get increased net operating income. They get to keep that money, right? That's what everybody wants to do. But here's the problem. You need a new HVAC system. The contractor comes in and says, look at all the savings you're going to get. And this is true. But you got to pay for it first. And so what the owner sees is 5 years of cash flow pain. Absolute pain, before they get to the savings. Because banks want to get paid back in 5 years or less. They don't know how long the company's going to own this business. They don't know if the company's going to stay in business. They don't know how long the company's going to own that building. And they can't come and take the HVAC system if you don't pay. So the banks are going to limit their risk by getting paid back more quickly. So there's a cash flow problem that stops everything. Property assessed clean energy is a mechanism that the county can create. You never touch the money. This doesn't affect your budget. It doesn't affect your bond rating, because you're not funding these. What you're doing is creating a mechanism that allows the land to become responsible to you. The land is assessed, which means obligated. I don't mean what does the CAD say the property's worth. The idea is this cost of this gets put on the land with a senior lien to you on behalf of the lender and not the company. And the banks or whatever lender is going to participate goes, that reduces my risk. I'll go out 20 years. I'll loan for 20 years instead of 5. And what happens is when you stretch out the loans long enough, far enough, the savings exceed the cost. These PACE projects literally pay for themselves. The savings pay for the project. And that's what we're trying to do, is have a series of assessments, technically doing and owing to Liberty County, but you never touch the money. The money is actually collected by the lender. But they're uniform. They're the same all the way through. So you don't have that upfront problem. So what happens? So this is an old building, 1926 building in Amarillo. On Route 66, built when Route 66 went through Amarillo, beautiful office building. It has been empty for 25 years, boarded up, busted windows, in the middle of downtown Amarillo for 25 years. It's going to become a Marriott Autograph Hotel. It's already changing the landscape, the commercial properties around it. The idea is developers came in, they kept trying to put that old building back to work, and they just couldn't make it work. It was too expensive, and they just couldn't make it pencil. So it sat there for 25 years. PACE funding is about 8 million out of the 40 or 50 million it's taking to put that back to work. We just closed a 6-story brick building that has no windows, kind of dangerous situation in Temple, Texas, that's going to be turned into apartments. And again, it sat there empty for years because nobody could figure it out. PACE is a little piece of the funding. It's not replacing the mortgage. It's not replacing a lot of other things. It's when you're going to fix something up, you can raise this much and you're going to be short. And this plugs that hole so these buildings can be built or renovated correctly the first time. Because if you don't do it right and you buy the cheap stuff because you don't have enough money, what do you cut? You cut all the stuff people don't see. And what you do is you cut the efficiencies, and that building then is going to be more expensive to run, and everybody in it's going to have to pay more. So you're going to have to pay for it one way or the other. PACE is a way to get it done right and to make some of these buildings that are beautiful but untouchable because they just don't work. Now economically they can work. So this is another way to talk about it. I call this 5 years of traditional funding. This is the tower of pain, right? All PACE is doing is knocking it over. You still have to pay for it. Private sector's still got to pay. But instead of paying it upfront before you get to the savings, we're going to stretch it out with smaller payments so the savings are used to pay for the project. Are you guys still with me? Okay. What is PACE? So property assessed clean energy. It's an economic development tool, the only one that you're going to have in your tool belt that doesn't cost you any money. And if the county creates it, then everybody in all the cities within the county also get it. So it's not just unincorporated area. If you create it, everybody will have it. It's 100% upfront financing provided by a private lender. So the project has to make sense in the marketplace where they're not going to find funding. And you're not guaranteeing anything to anybody. This is all, they have to sell it in the private sector for this to work. Okay, it can only be used for energy efficiency, water efficiency, or creating power on site. Okay, the rest of fixing up those buildings and the boss's office and the decorating the lobby, that comes from someplace else. This is just for energy and water savings. And for Liberty County, that frees up wasted energy and water for new growth. It also, I want to just throw in this tag on resiliency. Most of this new technology, stronger roofs, the stronger windows, make these buildings more resilient in storms. And so there are added benefits. We don't lead with that. It's not what the statute says, but there are other benefits to this, and one of them can be resiliency. And then finally, the only properties that are eligible for this are commercial, and that includes nonprofits. Nonprofits are commercial property that just happen to be owned by a group that doesn't pay taxes, but it's all commercial. Industrial, agriculture is a subset of industrial, or multifamily, which think about apartment complexes with at least 5 units. So those are the properties that can use the program. So we can go into more detail later, and I'll leave you all my information. I can come back to answer all these questions. But what is different in Texas than some of the previous programs in other states is we put a firewall between what the owner does and what the local government does. The owner has all the power. The owner picks the contractor, the lender, and the project. And when they get it all together and they meet our fairly rigorous underwriting and technical standards, and then the lender can add their own underwriting, when they get all that done, they apply to the program. The owner signs a contract with Liberty County where the owner says, I ask you to place a lien on my property for the cost of this, and I promise to pay it back. Then the lender and the county sign a contract where the county says to the lender, in exchange for providing this economic development in our community, you get the right to the stream of payments as they come in. And oh, by the way, instead of putting these on our tax bill and collecting it and sending it on to you, we're just going to delegate to you the job of collecting our money. So Texas was the first state to say, we're not putting these on the tax bill. Nobody has the money to do that. Nobody has the time, pardon me, the software. We're going to just let you do it. But what the county does do, however, is say, if somebody is late on a payment, we as the county will step in and collect that late payment, not the whole amount, but just the missed payment, or this one, or whatever. That is done, but the law says you get attorney's fees, penalties, and interest. So if the worst happens, there is no cost to you whatsoever. And the assumption is in all these counties and cities that whoever your tax collection firm is would do this work too. So these stay with the land. Pardon me. So I could fix up a building and in year 7, sell it, and the new owner pays the remaining assessments. Pardon me. This is where we are. And now that it's taken off and it's actually working, it's a lot easier for new counties who are considering this to pick up the phone and talk to other judges or to see what's happening. And I want to lay expectations. You have a potential project here that is pretty exciting. We've been trying for quite a while to serve the agriculture community. So it's really exciting to have an opportunity to do that. But it might take a while before you get a project. Real estate deals take about a year. And so we tell people this might take a while. Tarrant County had the program a year and a half before they closed their first project. And last year they closed 4. McLennan County had the program for about a year before their first project closed, and we've closed 3 this year. So it takes a while. And I just want to let you know that. You might be saying, what is going on here? Well, there'll be a lot of education and outreach, teaching people about the program, because an owner interested in this needs to be able to talk to an electrician and a mechanical and a roofer and a plumber who knows what this is. So we'll have a lot of work to do to bring people up to speed. But just to give you some examples, small 1980s office building in North Austin, Elgin General Store in Bastrop County. I'm pretty excited about that. This was the first project funded by a local bank. And we care very much about this. There's no shortage of money, but we need to make sure the local banks get comfortable with this. And it's really not your typical loan product that a bank will offer. But we've started to get their attention. We've got 4 banks ready to go today. This one was funded by Frontier Bank of Texas. It's a solar project on the roof. But the other thing that makes this project really exciting is that it qualified for a USDA REAP grant, Rural Energy Assistance Program. They got about $30,000 from the USDA and another $30,000 from Encore, their utility provider. And that brought the project down by probably 40% maybe. So we tell everybody, get every incentive you can. And in rural areas, you are eligible for a number of things that not everybody else gets. So this is an old cotton gin in downtown Dallas. It's being turned into offices. historic tax credits, and an opportunity zone funding along with PACE. So we really try and get owners and the lenders to get whatever else is out there to bring the cost down, because Texas PACE Authority is a nonprofit. One of our requirements, and you'll hear some moaning about it and some people who would like to get around it, but the group that put this project together said, if people don't trust that the savings are there, they're not going to lend against it and building owners won't use it. So one of our underwriting criteria is that the cost of the project over the life of the assessment has to be smaller than the savings. So there's an independent third-party engineer that reviews what the contractor is telling the owner and lender. We have a fairly tough technical standards manual. It's copied after the State Energy Conservation Office's manual on its similar program for government buildings. We won't accept a project until the savings exceeds the cost. These are projected, but they're based on solid engineering standards. So it's important that people get the savings, and it's important that they find every incentive that they're eligible for to get to that savings. Okay, so in Tarrant County, there's a Catholic Services for Youth. They used PACE to build a home for teenage kids who are a danger to themselves and their community. Family Elder Care is a nonprofit in Austin. They help people stay in their homes as long as possible. They did a new roof on the building they bought, small building, and solar, and their electric bill is $5 a month. Think about what that does for their core mission. Instead of putting the money where it doesn't help, you got to keep the lights on, but now the money goes to the core mission, and that's important for any nonprofit. Got an old theater in Fort Worth, and our first project in Texas was a day school for a Congregation Beth Israel. We've done 6 malls in Texas for Simon Properties. Their first 3, they closed 3 projects in 2 counties with 1 lender on the same day. So 2 in Williamson County and 1 in Travis County and all around Austin. And a judge who's since retired. I went in and I said, Simon Properties wants to do 2 malls in Williamson County and 1 in Travis. Travis County was the first county to create the program. Williamson was second. And the judge looked at me and goes, telling me that Travis County is your first county isn't helping you here. So, but the good news is we're serving rural, urban, big projects, small projects. This is kind of a nonpartisan deal. So that's worked out really well. Our first industrial was an old Hager sewing plant. Men don't really wear suits all that often anymore, so they'd been out of business for 10 years. A company in Missouri, the Levy company that makes cheerleading uniforms, came in and said, we're doing site visits, we're moving most of our business to Texas. That building is perfect for us. And if you'll create a PACE program, we'll buy the building. So Navarro County did that. They bought a building, 60 new jobs in Corsicana in a building that had been empty with really no value on the tax rolls. Now it does. Okay, so old XTO headquarters, 1926 building downtown Fort Worth is going to be Kimpton Hotel. The Plaza Hotel in El Paso, empty for 25 years, was the first high-rise that Mr. Hilton built. I didn't know Mr. Hilton was from El Paso, but so the heir to the Hilton fortune married Elizabeth Taylor. She lived in there for about 6 minutes, but it's going back to work. 161 permanent hotel jobs in a building that's been empty. That Barfield building I showed you first in Amarillo, 55 permanent new jobs. So a lot of benefits to the local government. And we are so careful on making sure these projects qualify that we've done everything we can up front to reduce the risk. So this this was a mercantile warehouse, 1910, across from City Hall. But the other thing that's happening is people are using it to fix up buildings, but they're also using it to buy the buildings and raise the money to buy and fix them up at the same time. So this old building is now 2 Marriott hotels, apartments, and first floor retail. But when they were going to build their capital stack to build it right, they were going to have to take out a $22 million loan at 15%, the mezzanine loan. They learned about PACE. They dropped it. They substituted that mezzanine loan for PACE loan, which was at 6% at the time. They're a little bit lower now. And they dropped their weighted average cost of capital, their interest rate, to buy that building by almost 2%. That's in addition to all the energy and water savings we track. Somebody took an old motor court hotel in Austin, East Austin, and they're turning it into 307 studio apartments. And housing is a huge issue there, so that's a big deal. Okay, here's the math. If this building was our first office building in Houston, 1980s, dead HVAC. HVAC and lighting. We see a lot of HVAC and LED lighting. If I paid for it all up front, the 1.3 million that project took, it would take me 6.5 years to break even. And my net present value in that investment is only $172,000, which is not a very good investment over 20 years. Okay. Now, one question I get really early, just go borrow the money. Here's why that doesn't work. So now I've got a down payment. I'm going to save $200,000 a year on my electric bill, however I finance it. Now I've got a down payment, a first year's payment, a bunch of added interest, and it's going to take 8.4 years for that to pay itself off because of the added interest. So borrowing money is even worse than if you had it, paying your own. But the net present value of that investment drops to $20,000 over 20 years. This is why we have deferred maintenance. And this is why we have beautiful old buildings that are sitting empty. It just can't work financially. So now let's look at PACE. No down payment. I'm going to save $200,000, but I'm going to pay it off over 20 years. So my payment is $118,000. In this building, they're getting $81,000 in additional cash into this building using this program. And they could have financed it over 10 years, had a smaller positive cash flow, but the owners were in Italy, and this is how the manager got them to say yes to fix up the building. So they're immediately cash flow positive. Now they're going to borrow a lot more. It's going to cost more to borrow money over 20 years. So their interest rate's higher, but they're using somebody else's money. They're bringing cash into the building. And as a result, their net present value investment, doing it this way, is $600,000 versus $20,000 versus $172,000. 3 times as much of an improved investment, even though it's going to ultimately cost more on the interest. Okay, so I'm kind of excited about this chart for 2 reasons. When we got started in 2015, nobody knew what this was. We were only serving a couple counties. So this 2016, about 3 million, that was actually it's 6 million, but that was the mall projects I showed you earlier. We had a big project in Dallas. That was that big office building I told you about. 2018, we did 11. Last year, more projects closed in Texas, more dollar volume than the first 3 years combined. And we've told everybody we're going to lower our rates as we become self-sufficient. And in those first couple of years, we were funded by the Meadows Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and the Environmental Defense Fund because of the free market way that this was put together. There's a lot of hope behind what we're doing, and other states are copying it instead of having government be issuing bonds and lots of extra expense and whatever. So this year, despite COVID, we've closed 22 million. I think we'll probably do another 10 by the end of the year. So it's not going to be as big as last year, but we've already closed more projects this year, despite COVID, than in any of the previous years. They're just smaller projects. And frankly, that's healthier and that's great. So we're never going to need a big staff, but the growth across the state means that more people can use the program. So as more projects come in, we're going to continue to lower our rates because we're never going to need to be big. And our idea isn't to make as much money doing this. This really is designed to be a public service. So we committed to the legislature to bring this to all of Texas. So we're in Eagle Pass, we're in the Valley, we're in Fisher County and Dickens County and Dawson County in West Texas. It's okay. They have one project every 20 years. They still ought to have the program, right? And so, yeah, we do more projects in the bigger cities, but they allow us, we can leverage that to do good throughout Texas. So we're very excited to be here. We're doing all different kinds of properties. That's the point of that circle. The only thing we're missing is healthcare. And eventually somebody will discover how great this program is for healthcare because these kinds of costs are controllable, right? Utility bills are controllable.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
With hospital district, in the county,
Yes, sir.
and they're contemplating building a new facility. How would this aid them with a new facility and not going back and refurbishing an old facility?
Okay.
They use that method going.
Well, so the first question is the hospital district, is that public or is it private? And it's not nonprofit. It's actually part of the government. Okay, so this statute only applies to privately owned property.
Okay.
But there's something better for you. And I would be very happy to put them in touch with the State Energy Conservation Office is part of the comptroller's office, run by Glenn Haber is our comptroller right now. It's called the State Energy Conservation Office. SECO has a program called Lone Star, LOANSTAR, play on words. They've loaned $500 million to governmental entities for city halls, maintenance sheds, schools, you name it. Hospital would clearly qualify. It's actually better than this program because all of the engineering, we're really modeled after that, but all of the engineering is actually provided by the state. So the hospital district wouldn't have to pay for that. And it's a low cost revolving loan fund. So they got to have somebody who knows how to do all that. But the state has loaned $500 million to Texas local government entities with a 0 default rate. So I'll help you with that. Okay, so everybody, so if you create the program, or you create the program, property owners can take advantage of it, but we need the architects, the engineers, the people providing the services, the manufacturers providing the equipment, and then the lenders. Everybody has to work together. And that's part of the reason I say it might be a while before you see a project because we got to bring everybody up to speed on this. So the Pace in a Box model I talked to you about that the 55 local governments are using, this really is a labor of love in a strong service-oriented way. This was designed not to go out and make a bunch of money because we saw that in other states and it doesn't really work very well. And only the biggest, wealthiest people can use it. And we didn't want that to be the case in Texas. So it's uniform, it's user-friendly, it's scalable, it's sustainable. Our costs aren't great because we're not trying to compete with your businesses. We're not doing the engineering. We're not doing the lending. We're not even doing the servicing. We want the people in the private sector. We want your folks to get those jobs and make that money. So our footprint's kind of small. We just make sure the projects are done properly. So it would be unethical for us to be developing those projects if we're going to be the ones to oversee them on your behalf. Really, we're supposed to be your staff. That's how we see ourselves. That's all we're trying to do. So we do education and outreach and we oversee the projects and that's all we do. And that's why we're never going to really be expensive. We do this as a nonprofit. We're as transparent as it gets. But the whole idea, you can see the footprint of the Texas Association of Business and the Texas Manufacturers Association. They wanted all the power to be in the hands of the property owner. Okay, so program design, that's former Senator Kip Averett from McLennan ran, what is this? What's it going to look like? What are the documents we need? Program underwriting was chaired by Vice President of the Texas Association of Business. Technical standards was chaired by the Director of the State Energy Conservation Office. Funding platform, that was chaired by the General Counsel of the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association, which reminds me, if there's a mortgage on the property, you have to get the written permission of the mortgagee to use this program because this is a senior lien that jumps ahead of the mortgage. So they can say no, or they can use this to serve their best customers, but there are good reasons why banks are saying yes, it's great for them. Their customers are cash flow positive. There's a lot of good in this once banks get their arms around it. Because unlike traditional loans where the banks are lending money against the profits of the company, here they're lending money against the savings to the land. So it's a little bit different. And once they get used to it, we need them to make these loans. Okay, so, and then finally, education and training. How in the world do we explain this to people? And as you can tell, my elevator speech has about 99 floors on it. It's hard. Okay, so if you want to create the program, you post a report on how the program will work. It goes on your website. You pass a resolution of intent saying we're intending to create the program. Here's the report and how it's going to work. And that resolution sets a hearing date. So the public can see the report and come in a public hearing. And then the last thing you do is you pass a resolution establishing the program. And then unless you're going to run it in-house, you'll do a professional services agreement with an administrator to run it for you. And we would love to do that if you so choose. Okay, so financial, you have fiscal responsibility and fiduciary responsibility to your constituents and to the county. And this program was designed with that in mind. No tax dollars. We take the risk with a user fee. No risk to your treasury. No risk to your public servants. We'll report to somebody, but whoever's working on this cannot be sued individually, which is a great relief for the tax assessor collector. And there's limited, really it's just oversight. I just need to know who do we talk to if we have questions? Who do we give the annual report to? Really not gonna affect your FTE or anything like that. Okay, fiduciary. You wanna make sure these succeed. You don't want a property owner angry at you. So you've already got a project to show you. You're not gonna create it for me. You should create it for your own constituents, and you've got that. We have best practices in consumer protection. People are gonna eventually complain that we're too tough. This was created to be tough with the idea that we'll go back and look at this every couple years and see if our experience is showing us that we don't need to be that tough. An example of that that's happening right now, the underwriting working group got back together and said, what are the issues that are causing people grief? The statute says, local government, what's the appropriate loan to value? In other words, how big should these loans be compared to the value of the property? They started out with 20%. The rest of the country's at 25 or 30. We sat down with everybody. We pulled everybody back in and said, what do you think? This is a big group effort. The bank said, I don't know. And the lenders who are making PACE loans said, oh man, go to 30. So we ended up at 25, but the banks came in and said, we need to make sure that you're setting your values on quality appraisals. So we moved from 20 to 25 a couple months ago, but we also added all the banking requirements for appraisals. If it's above $500,000, you got to get a certified Texas licensed appraisal. And so we tracked what the banks are doing to make sure that we're getting our value right. And that's what happens when you bring in everybody and you ask for help and you build a program about what's right for Texas. So over time, you will see some movement like that, but it'll be brought. It's not going to be because Texas Space Authority thought it was a good idea. We really kept those working groups together, and we go back to them and ask for help when something comes up that nobody thought about. Okay, best practices in consumer protection. We don't compete with the private sector. It's Texas, right? That's just not going to work. Okay, and then if the worst thing happens, all of your costs are covered in forfeiture. You don't have to take over the property. It can sit there until somebody comes and buys it and pays it off. And that's the lender's problem, not your problem. Yes, sir.
When you talk about superior lien, is that still subordinate to the tax lien?
Actually, the statute says they're on level. This is one of the things I'd like to clarify with the statute. It's pretty clear to me that the local governments are going to pay themselves first. But the yeah, exactly. So
if the tax foreclosure, say foreclosed from the tax sale, you'd have to give notice just like anyone else. You'd be like a secured lender.
yes. And
Kind of like an IRS lien or anything else.
well, it would be like yours, like your tax lien. We require the lender, if they don't get paid, to tell the mortgagee. And the mortgagees are probably going to come and take the property, rather than let it get worse in the tax situation. But you don't have to take these unless you're going to take them for tax purposes. But even then, you don't ever have to pay the assessments. They just sit there. So to explain that risk, let's say there's a building that's worth $5 million, and they're going to put a 10% tax lien on it over 10 years. So that's $50,000 a year, right? Okay. So if they don't pay, so wait a minute. So 500,000, it's 50,000 for the PACE loan, right? No, it's going to be, I hate math. Let's make it simple. $10 million, PACE loans at 10%, so it's $100,000. They're going to pay it over 10 years, so that's $10,000. So the building's worth $10 million. The annual PACE assessment is only $10,000. So if that building gets into trouble, is the lender really going to ask you to forfeit the entire building over $10,000? Is that $10,000 going to interfere with your ability to collect your taxes and be made whole at forfeiture? Highly unlikely. I mean, hopefully it won't ever happen, because if it does, nobody's going to trust this program.
And how long your lien stays in place until it's
Paid off. Now, when you sell, so let's say it gets sold at the county steps, county courthouse steps, the new owner is going to buy it with the obligation to pay those remaining payments. And they're going to get value because the equipment is fixed up and the savings exceed the cost of it. So they come out ahead, the lender gets paid the missing payment, but they do not accelerate. They stay with the land until they're paid off.
What kind of disclosure is given to the patrons of that?
So the three documents that involve this program with the county are the owner contract and the lender contract I talked about, and the notice of assessment lien, which is filed with the county clerk in the property records. So anybody doing a search is going to see this. The statute says these loans do not have senior status until that document is filed with the clerk. So until it's a publicly disclosed lien, it doesn't have senior status. Okay, so the other thing we've done is, and I've talked about this probably too much, is the whole idea of free market, that nobody has to use this program. You don't have to create it. We hope you will, but if you do, nobody has to use it. They'll use it when it makes sense in the market. And so and the other thing that's happening, which I didn't really understand at the time, was when we didn't put these on the tax bill, that created more local freedom, because tax bills get paid once a year. Well, banks are used to getting paid more than once a year. And so by not putting on the tax bill, we've left it to the lender and the owner. They choose their interest rates, they choose their terms, but they can also choose how often the lender wants to get paid. So we've got a couple projects that are monthly, got a couple that are semi-annually, most of them are annually, but banks are, that's more bank friendly to be able to negotiate that way. Okay, this is really a win-win-win situation. There's no downside. And once people understand it, that's the biggest challenge we have, is getting people to understand it. And it takes time, and it takes hearing it multiple times. And it's like peeling an onion. So you'll probably have some questions in an hour, and hopefully you know where to find me, and I can email this to someone so you have it. But and there's lots of resources out there, and that's me. Can I answer any other questions? You've been very patient. I probably took too long. So.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Shirley. Can somebody switch the PowerPoint?
I'll just take mine out.
I'm going to need to bring Doug Hirsch online. May have had to check out. Okay, I appreciate everybody listening to Charlene. We see PACE as a tool that we would like to use to get our project going out at Juma Ranch, which is up near Cleveland. And Ron Smith, who's here with us today, is the owner out there. I'm Stephen Bergdorf. My company is part of a group of large technologies that we put together a company called Alternative Resource Technologies here in Texas. And this is to serve 3 large technology licenses in the green energy sector. First of which is Prosto Wind Power, which you guys will see in just a second. We've got some water purification, water reuse technologies, and some grid integrity technologies that add really into our overall solutions offering. What we're doing at Juma Ranch is setting up a manufacturing facility to produce these wind sections for global contracts that we have through Prosto Wind Power. Prosto Wind Power is a technology group based out of New York, and they have brought on a technology that was developed over in Poland and in the UK, or in the EU rather, as a supplemental power source. As you guys most realize, that the wind energy over in Poland was kind of eaten up by the gas deal that Putin put in place a few years ago. So these guys came to the United States and started working with Prosto Wind Power, with Doug Hirsch, and with us at Alternative Resource Technologies, to actually own 20% of our company here in Texas. And we've been working to develop the European technology, which is a 50 hertz stackable wind technology, which is able to be placed in low wind areas, placed in high wind areas, in mountainous areas, on tops of buildings, can be really utilized in hundreds of different locations where traditional wind is not practical or can't be implemented due to the constraints on the power grid. So what I'm going to show to you real quick here is just a quick overview of who we are, Alternative Resource Technologies. It's just like I said, we're a group that looks at new technologies, both international and local, and we work to bring those technologies into a commercial setting. And oftentimes when you have a standalone technology, it's easier to bring it into a commercial setting if you have a solution to offer. We've got a problem pumping water, and we can't get electricity out to the farm to pump the water. We've got a solution for that. We've got well water available, but the well water is not suitable for use on the farm. We've got a solution for that. That will handle both cleaning the water up for the farm's use, as well as providing power to pump it. So that's who we are. Alternative Resource Technologies is a solutions group that is based in Texas to utilize these technology licenses. Partnered with Ron a little bit more over a year ago. Ron's got a big background in manufacturing in the oil and gas industry and has been looking to diversify from subsea construction and implementation into other sectors. Cleaning up the world with green energy always got him a little excited. So we looked at how we could set up and support Prosto Energy and some of these large global contracts and create local jobs. So what we've done is put together a program with Prosto and with Alternative Resource Technologies to do some manufacturing of these wind sections in Texas. We'll see the product in just a second. We are trying to implement PACE in the county to utilize that funding source, as well pull in the USDA grant program and others, and educate folks around Liberty County on how they can use these and other programs to implement these energy saving solutions and become a little bit greener, save a little bit of money at the same time, and, as she said, resiliency. The products that we offer will stand up to it. They can be implemented pretty fast. We can put them on trucks and pull them up to a municipal location that's a command center in an emergency. So there's a lot of different applications that you'll see with this product really quickly. What this is going to entail at Juma Properties is the use of a lot of power and the utilization of a lot of people. from the local community. That means jobs and jobs for long term. Right now, we've contracted to build 300 sections at Ron's property with subcontractors in other areas around the county, around South Texas, to build up to 5,000 sections of this wind to export around the United States and around the world over the next 12 to 24 months. So we're trying to use PACE to put together this program and use David Douglas, the county engineer, to get us approved for this product and get it up and running in as quick a fashion as possible. So back to the presentation. It's everything that I just basically said, repeated. Wind power technologies, these are some applications that are what we envision around the world. This is what the product actually looks like. This is a 300 kilowatt triad. It stands about 95 to 100 feet tall, depending on the height of the base. So it doesn't create a problem for air traffic. It can be installed fairly near to airports. What this entails is very different than traditional wind. It has a very small footprint. As a matter of fact, the triad that would support 300 kilowatts of energy could fit inside this room. Basically, there's no safety area that has to be cordoned off for this product, so it can go in the middle of the parking lot and you can still park your cars around it, walk around the thing. That kind of covers on the wind technology. These are some projections that we did early on the cost of wind farms, the annual output of a 10 megawatt size system, 100 megawatt size system, and I'll make this presentation available as well. Annual revenues, ROIs, estimated revenue after ROI is pretty intense. Now this varies with PPAs, power purchase agreements, and we're really focused on here in Liberty County. I'm going to close it. Do I just close this when I go to this? All right, Prosto Wind Power. This is what we hold the license to develop, sell, and manufacture here in Texas. So this is sort of a comparison as to traditional wind turbines. Everybody's driven out to South Texas. I'm sorry, Mark.
Ratchet up the volume just a touch.
You bet. Turn your hearing aid up. All right, so this is a demonstration of traditional horizontal wind, which everybody's seen driving down the highway, and you see a big farm of these huge windmills. Only a third of them are ever turning, right? It's a very inefficient operation. All of these windmills require power to turn the operation into the wind, depending on the direction it's coming from. They stay in a braked position up to about 20 miles per hour, and they go back into a braked position at about 40 miles per hour. So their efficiency range is in a day that has a 20-mile-an-hour wind to a day that has a 40-mile-an-hour wind. We're a little bit different because we're stackable and we're modular, and the way that the turbine turns is the turbine on the side of the house, no external pieces. So we gather wind speed from any direction. Here in South Texas and in Liberty County specifically, one of the reasons there's not traditional wind up here is that we suffer big wind shear. We also have Cat 3 and Cat 4 hurricanes that destroy these things. Our design would allow for use during a hurricane. We actually can operate up to about 135 miles per hour. We start making power about 3.5 miles per hour. In other words, 3 meters per second. It's about 6.6 miles per hour wind. We are making full power. This is a modularly stackable technology, which allows us to build in a location. It doesn't cause transportation issues. We can actually put our modulars on a low-weight truck. Get back to this in a minute. Here's one of the houses. And this is what we'll be building out at Juma Properties. The modular. These are some installations that we have over in Poland. We also have some installations in upstate New York that are similar to these. There's a new triad on the right that supports 300 kilowatts of power. Each one of these sections is rated at about 10 kilowatts output. 6 rating can actually go a little bit higher, but we underestimate. So in other words, a 9 stack, which is what we're proposing to put up at Ron's place at Jim Ranch, would be optimally producing 90 kilowatts per hour. It'll be right at 100 feet. Right at 100 feet, because the doghouse.
What's that?
The doghouse at the bottom, it's about 20 feet, 20 to 22 feet. Yes, sir.
Cylinders, 10 foot. So 10 foot by.
Okay.
You're talking about the section.
Yeah.
So diameter's about 10 feet wider, so they fit on a lowboy truck without a load restriction. All the internal parts are what moves. So none of this out here moves, it's set straight. The beauty part about this, you can paint it really any color you want. We painted ours here in the United States trying to be green, the outside being that green and the inside turbine that you see moving is that yellow. But the point is you can paint it any color you want. You can put graphics on it. You know, you can make it aesthetic. Things. Camo works, you know. That's what it looks like on the back of the truck. This is the internal section right here. It makes all the power. So basically, it's just on a pinwheel, and it cuffs, so it collects the wind no matter which direction. If we have 20% wind shear, which can cause damage to the conditioning turbines, we actually speed up our production and make more power based on the shear. The reason we put it in the triads is because doing the research, we realized that the wind that passes around the first tower that's missed accelerates and hits that second tower and causes a little bit of an increase in efficiency. Each section is tied into the next section, so it is one internal turbine. They all spin at the same speed, and this connects to a constant velocity transmission that is in the doghouse that will spin our low speed generator at an optimal speed. It's usually between 76 and 80 RPMs per minute. So it's a low speed, high efficiency generator that's on the brain. So the only maintenance that you're looking at with these windmills is grease and bearings once, twice a year, depending on the environment you're in. About a 10-year cycle on replacing some moving parts inside the generators and constant monitoring of the power conditioning system, which is helped out by another technology in our beta they call it Smart Kid. It's an artificial intelligence capable system that is designed for grid integrity. So what this does and why this gives us an advantage in specific products is that we can create clean power where a lot of the traditional wind source is not creating a linear power, a very clean power, which is why a lot of power companies are staying away from it, which is why it's not usable in a behind the meter application. And I would think that's where we're going to see, Judge, in Liberty County. A lot of our applications up front is behind the meter, right? Somebody who's got a plant, you know, somebody who's got a farm where they're either far away, they don't want to pay the utility for the upgrade to get more power out there, or it's just too difficult. We see the behind the meter installation as being very efficient and very good to the consumer. Like Ron's particular installation will feed part.
So how do you get it transmitted to the grid? What's the
same way you would a solar output, the same way you would just get a diode that keeps it from going one direction unless you've got a PPA. If that PPA is established, then you control both directions. So ideally, we
easement over the property.
Pardon?
So do you get an easement for that transmission line? Or is that
I believe it depends on the county and where you're trying to put it in. So we would have to work with local utility if we needed to put a higher output back to the grid. There would be some cost to the project. hope that utility can pick up some of that. Again, as we get this implemented, we start to see some installations. The 40 kilowatt to 180 kilowatt type of installation that will mostly be providing power to that particular institution, that particular business.
So the producer develops a contract with the co-op or with the utility.
That's correct. And we've got another entity that has got some great experience in putting together PPAs. Prosto Wind Power has got some folks on staff right now that are putting together PPAs to sell large deals in Canada, large deals in Jamaica. We've got one up in New Jersey that's going in, and hopefully we're going to begin putting these things into Texas pretty soon. So we'll have one group that's focusing on microgrid and macro grid production and selling PPAs and working with the power producers. And then we'll have another group that's more working with local ag and local co-ops and car dealerships or whoever can utilize this technology behind the meter. That's what she looks like. That's what it looks like going in. This is a triad for 300 kilowatt installation. It's an engineered base designed to hold these things up at 135 miles an hour. They're properly bolted in. We use guide wires for this installation. They do expect some of the excess of 100 miles this particular installation. Again, where Ron Smith and his engineering company comes in handy. They've done all sorts of subsea installations and work with loads that are hundreds of times greater than what we're working with. This is a smaller version, which we're also going to be offering here. What we're putting up at Ron's place, we'll be manufacturing out there is a steel construction. But there is a 5 kilowatt skinnier, taller version of it that's made out of aluminum. So there is some diversity in the product too. If there is a parking structure that supports a building and there is a high overhead on electricity, this thing can be retrofitted over the top of the parking. Depending on the structure itself, you can get 30, 40, 60 kilowatts on top of the building. So it's pretty versatile. That's what she looks like. This is what the internal turbine looks like. This is what we put in the doghouse. That down there at the bottom is, pardon me for the lack of translation on the one line. I just thought that was This was an example of the 50 hertz unit that we use in Poland. What we developed here is to match the 60 hertz bid. This is what the CVT provides. CVT being the constant velocity transmission. So if we're in a 3 meter per second wind, which is very slow wind, we can still produce power by overturning the generator at low speed. We can achieve that power, and we can achieve a fairly linear power even at those low speeds. Once we get to a speed above about 4 meters per second, we shift gears, turning it at almost a 1-to-1 ratio. And then we begin to underdrive it at above 10 miles per hour. By underdriving it, we are keeping it at a very linear output. And we also begin to store energy with our pneumatic output system. So basically, we are diverting some of this torque energy into the pneumatic drive and storing air energy that can be reutilized if the wind power either goes away or goes so low. That makes sense to everybody? So what we've got is a system that the end user can almost go completely off the grid, 80 to 90% of the time by installation. Feed credits back to his bill in the right scenario and agreement with the power company, and enjoy that savings and that power production for up to 60 to 70 years. What we're talking about as far as moving parts are the ceramic bearings. We don't have big, huge fan blades or anything that's taking the load. It's just simple steel. Therefore, the life of our product is about 3 times that of traditional wind. It's almost 4 times that of solar power. And solar power doesn't make energy at night. So we have some big advantages and see some reasons why we want to put this in the rural areas as well as in industrial areas. It's a little history of the company, where it all started. And everything is, by the way, patented in the United States now. All the upgrades are patented, all the generators are patented. And we continually improve those patents and file on them. This is a smaller unit. That was a research unit over in Poland. I think you guys can see from the size of this one, this could actually fit in the backyard. If you own a 1-2 acre property and you're trying to offset, this is a 20 kilowatt stack, right? Actually, it's 25, just 5 section. So instead of the big sections, this is 5 kilowatts a stack. So this would outperform what would be 3 installations of a solar system in the house. Same sort of longevity. Another research section. Now, these things produce torque as well, so they don't have to just generate energy. It's a windmill at the end of the day that is spinning and producing torque, so there are other applications for it as well. This is a test unit that we put on a Harima ship that was being built about 5 years ago to see what it would do sailing into the wind. These things are going to be implemented into ship hulls and other places for efficiency over the next few years, but just another unique application. One of the things I didn't talk about with the wind power, everybody's seen the videos of one of these things blowing apart, burning up, and causing environmental havoc. You've also seen the birds on the ground from the bird kill, knocking eagles out of the air. The folks who live out in the plains that are complaining because their house continuously oscillates and everything vibrates all the time from wind interruption. These things make very little noise. As a matter of fact, we could have one spinning in a 10 mile an hour wind right next to us in the room. It's actually that quiet. Birds see it as a solid object, so they avoid it. So there's 0 to very little to 0 bird kill. Bats see it. It's always moving, so we don't worry about things falling inside it and getting stuck. It's an environment installation. This is just a basic drawing, but what we're showing here is how we could install this in a marsh. We could install this in a low-lying area, or if we've got to get above a tree line, we could achieve that by putting a blank section in here or there and raising the production set a little bit higher above the ground. The other thing that we've designed and are working to implement is a blank section up in a higher area for commercial locations, because we can put a sign on it. We can put an LED display on it. If the county wanted to do a 6-section stack near one of the courthouses and have a public display on it, it could completely run that display without putting a burden on the energy grid. So there's some very neat applications that are outside the box. We've looked at and we've done some design around building cell towers that use the windmill tower as a structure and putting all the electronics on top. This lessens the need for generators and for gas and for all the other ancillaries that support that particular tower in the event of a storm. Our system could actually be, once it's qualified, could actually be all inclusive. The power generator, the power backup, and everything that's needed to come up to code. And we're working on some applications for that right now. Talked to the judge about the fact that these things could be used out on ranches, out on farms. It's quiet enough that it could become a deer blind for those folks of you who hunt, an observation deck. They can be put along the highway to gather, the energy from passing trucks. And one of the things that we're implementing up in New Jersey is a program to do tri-stack at each of the rest stops along the highway to provide power to that rest stop to take it off the grid, to provide water pumping to that rest stop to take it off the water grid, use our water reproduction to reclaim as much water at that particular rest stop as we can. And this is all powered by the tri-stack. And the beauty of it is they're all coming up to speed because we're going to put 10 terminals to charge EV cars powered off of that stack in each of those rest stops. We want that program in Texas. I don't know how many rest stops there are in Liberty County. I tried to find that, but I couldn't see it.
One burger, that's a pretty much.
That's it. That's it. You know, but you get the idea. This thing is going to be utilized in dozens of different applications, and our opportunity is to get up and running in Liberty County and get some jobs going in very short order. So we'd like to work with PACE to get Ron's project going and use it as an example, so other ranchers, farmers, business owners can see how it works and work with us on how to get it implemented fast. And then we would like to work with the county on the technologies that we're bringing into Liberty County to build these jobs and do some installations and implementations with you guys.
These do generate three-phase power?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I will share with David Douglas and county. I will share with you guys all the efficiencies. I figured that was probably a little too much to put up on screen today, but there is some data that goes behind this technology that is far beyond what's available out there for traditional wind. And I think when you see the performance data and the efficiency data on it, it's a game changer. Any questions on it?
What's the cost of a small 5-section stack?
Small 5-section stack, probably going to be somewhere in the area between $200,000 and $200,000, depending on the soil that we test for, how much engineering needs to go to the base. There are some small costs. There's also consideration of how close you are to the power lines or liquid type back. So there's some little costs involved. Generally, traditional wind is about $2.2 million a megawatt, $2 to $2.2 million. We are modeled to be at about 10% rate. But when you look at the difference, you generating power starting at 6 miles per hour, all the way through the range of where they have to cut out. They don't even turn on until some of them at 18 miles an hour, some of them as high as 22. So our efficiency in gathering power in a low wind location it changes everything. Our ability to go put it in a place that does have bad soil report is also a game changer because we don't have that much weight. We're talking about 2,200 pounds per section. You can do the math. It's a fairly easy install. Yes, sir.
You might talk to us about it. Do you enter into a lease agreement with the landowner, or do you get into a purchase?
Well, that's a good question. We have tried to stay as a direct end user business model right now. Now, two of the projects that are going on here in the United States and one in Canada involve PPAs. So that's a group that is buying the equipment and leasing the land, much like an oil lease. We see some big advantages in our technology for those folks who do want to run that business model. Everybody's been down the highway and you've seen 5 out of 100 windmills turning. There's a real good reason for that, is that they don't put out linear power. So they've really got to turn them on and off based on the load need. We have the ability to store power and to change our output based on the need of the grid. Our technology called Smart Cable, which has been implemented in India and New Jersey now here in the United States and some other rural areas, it's a system that really predicts the load coming in, the load that's needed, and gives us the ability to adjust our output with the pop system on the turbine. Again, back to your question, that's some of the cost differentiators. It depends on, you want the Ferrari with V12, or you want the Ferrari with So depending on what your application is, there's a solution that will fit it. Another thing that we want to work with county on and with FEMA on is emergency response. We've got a couple of models on how we can truck these things out and set them up. We've also got a couple of models on how we can install them directly onto a truck and hydraulically lift it in place and actually provide 30 to 40 kilowatts on the site. Be up and running in a matter of hours as opposed to a couple of days. So, Judge, those are some things that we want to have conversations in the future about. But I think everybody here can see that this is a different technology than what you've seen in the past. And when you say wind technology, you expect to see big fans, right? That's not it.
You put them in water as well.
That's a buoy that was a R&D design that actually has one spinning on the top and one spinning in the bottom. So it's in an area that's tidal, right? So it's used as a buoy. So it's collecting energy from the wind and it's collecting energy from the water as it goes in and out. It's a pretty brilliant installation. We want to develop here too. There's not too many of these. This is your power versus torque curve, so you guys can kind of see that in 1.6 meters per second, we're turning. And again, this is where we're at full power. This is where we're storing power. Traditional wind starts here and ends here. This is what we're going to be building out in Juma, and are hoping to have some outlying tools to use, like PACE, like the USDA that you hooked us up with. Please get the judge in touch with your other program. I knew that existed, and the county could utilize that program to do public buildings. Let's face it, throughout the county, there's plenty of areas that could utilize this power supplement. Really benefit from. Don't want to bore you with any of the other technologies because this is what we're really focused on here. I'll make the presentation available to everybody. I'm on the email, so if you have any questions, please email me. Please give me a call. I've got some cards up here. And basically, that's it. What I was going to do real quick at the very end is kind of show you what we're doing out at Juma Ranch while we're getting ramped up for the wind production. So we're a technology group. And COVID hit earlier this year, we got pushed into a little bit of a waiting game. And so what do you do when you're a technology group? Death and destruction around COVID made a lot of sense to focus our efforts there. Got some ideas around that. And the guys back here, come up, show them back. So we went into production of electrostatic spray equipment. And we're also going to be creating jobs in Liberty County. This is some of the production that our wind stack is going to support. What this is an electrostatic backpack spray that sprays a water-based disinfectant. And what I'm going to do after we all clean this room is completely disinfect this room of COVID in about 6 minutes. And nobody will have to come back and do anything after because it all dries clean and clear. But these are the kinds of products and innovations that we put together out of Juma Ranch. So if anybody's got any county cleanup or anything that they want some help with, please get in touch with Ron or myself. And we'll be glad to come out and give you a demonstration of the equipment and set you up with what you need to get running. Well, thank you all. So electrostatics, everybody know what electrostatics is? Electrostatics is electrically charging the fluid as it comes through the spray nozzle. And being an American-made company, we work with a group here in Texas that's been doing electrostatics in the agriculture industry for what, 25 years since 95. This is actually adapted from a crop duster that uses electrostatic technology. Where we're different than all the Japanese and all the Chinese folks is that we're using the charge at the tip and spraying an electrostatically charged ion that will not touch another droplet until it lands in a positively charged surface. And the result of that is the chemical spreads out. It grabs around the object. So when I spray a chair like this, I don't have to walk around the chair. I just come by, spray the area, and those ions will grab around that location. Leave it. You let it sit. In 2 minutes, it's completely disinfected. There are that's not really but it also takes a lot of time and effort and labor. What this does is it allows you to immediately come in and do something very rapidly without getting in contact with the chemical itself. And it's done. It's done. Takes about 1/4 the time to condition and using what, maybe 1/3 the product, 1/4 the product. Cost savings for hospitals, cost savings for municipal buildings, cost savings for that's what we're doing at the company.
We learned that we can use our skid mounted unit in the back of the UTV, and all my flies and mosquitoes are gone.
Yep.
So that fly spray I buy at Tractor Supply, when you put the electrostatic process to it, it actually works. And it's amazing. So either disinfecting the schools, the churches, the ball games, or boom, put it on and kill all the flies. Or scare
The
flies.
the skid mounted unit can actually put on a truck or on mosquito control is amazing with this stuff. And what you end up doing is using about 1/3 the chemical dispersant to, if you want out and spray in the swamp area or marsh area, put it in a lightweight truck, get it out there. It's a good product.
What's the effective range?
Pardon?
The effective range.
The effective range on the outdoor unit does?
You saw what that one did, but our skid mounted unit shoots out about 100 feet out and about 50 feet wide and just take off all. And then the wind hits it and you see it just going out and sticking to the leaves and everything. It's amazing, So we're pretty excited about it. We'll come up with anything we can come up made in Texas, because we start buying our backpacks from Tractor Supply, so that we got some magic juju in there that, but you need to replace the pump or whatever, go down to Tractor Supply or Home Depot and get what you need, and just, get the magic from us, after we facilitate.
Well, anyway, I wanted to tell you guys about the obviously because it's a big product.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing out at Jima Ranch, and that's what we're kind of trying to build besides, the wind technology. We're going to be doing some of these things. So thanks a lot for coming and bringing Pace, because if they get it implemented, we'll use it. We'll use it with a lot of customers. Co-ops, farmers. Sure appreciate it.
All right. Anybody else got any questions or comments? Lee, you got any comments? You're an engineer.
Yeah.
He's also an attorney.
That's helpful.
We get a lot of good use out of this. All right, Clint?
I'm good.
Brother Rick? You good? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Appreciate the presentation. And see if we can find some application for you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you all so much.
Really appreciate that.
All right. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir. All right, we're done.
Thank you.
We'll get one of those little frame rates for the back.